Hi all of you. In this video, we are going to discuss question number 34. It's given in page number 79 of your material. So first, let us quickly read the question. Share capital they have given. They have first given us the balances at year end, and then they have given us the opening balances. Second column represents the opening balance. Preferential capital, CRR, general reserve, P&L account, debenture with convertible option, other term loans, fixed assets less depreciation, long-term investments, working capital. Sales minus cost of sales. Cost of sales is opening stock plus purchase minus closing stock. Establishment charges, selling and distribution expense, interest, loss on sale of equipment, interest income, dividend income, forex gain. Now, this sentence is missing in your material, so kindly add it. Foreign exchange gain on CCE, cash and cash equivalent, held in foreign currency. So this is foreign exchange gain on CCE, not on debtors restatement, not on creditors restatement, but on CCE restatement. We have some foreign currency held with us. On the restatement of that foreign currency, on the date when we received the foreign currency, when we received the dollars, we recorded those receipt of dollars in our books at a particular rate existing on the transaction date. And this dollar is still with us at year end also. So we have to restate the cash held in foreign currency to the year end rate of exchange. And due to that restatement, if any gain or loss happens, that is called forex gain or loss, which comes in the P&L account. And in the balance sheet, the restated revised figure of cash appears. Since actually there is no cash inflow, so when we prepare cash flow statement, we don't consider this in the cash flow statement. So when we don't consider this in the cash flow statement, our closing CCE as per cash flow statement will not match with the CCE balance in the balance sheet, because in the balance sheet we have restated the cash held in foreign currency using the exchange rate existing at year end. So we prepare one reconciliation statement and we match the CCE existing in balance sheet with the CCE in cash flow statement. That reconciliation statement can be either prepared with CFS, within the CFS, or separately. Any one of the thing is fine. Damages received for loss of reputation is an extraordinary item. So it is an inflow for us and we will show it under operating activity. Extraordinary item. Then depreciation, taxes, dividend, and profit carried forward to balance sheet. About foreign currency, we discussed it in a separate video. So if you have not seen that video, first see the video of treatment of foreign currency items in preparation of CFS, and then you come back to this question. Then you are informed by the accountant that the ledgers relating to trade receivable means debtor, trade payables means creditors, and stock for both the years were taken away by the income tax authorities. So we don't have the debtors details, we don't have the creditors details, and we don't have the stock details with us. Income tax authorities have taken. And it would take at least 2 months to obtain the copies of the same. Now, to prepare cash flow statement, we need collection from debtors. That comes from the debtors account. And to prepare debtors account, we need the opening balance of debtors, closing balance of debtors. But those information are with income tax authorities, and he will give us after 2 months. He is telling, I will not give you today. Similarly, we need payment to creditors. Now, to find out the payment to creditors, we need to prepare creditors account. In the creditors account, we need opening balance of creditor, closing balance of creditor. And in the creditor account, one of the item is purchase. And purchase is determined using COGS equation. And in COGS equation, we need inventory. So neither that, so income tax authorities have taken away from us the details of debtors, creditors, stock, and these are the most important details to determine the cash collected from debtors and payment to creditors under direct method. And these details will be available after 2 months. But one favor income tax authority has done is they have given us the following information. They have told on 31st March 2015, these are except debtor, creditor, and inventory. They have given us the details of, we are provided with the details of other current assets, other current liability. So all these are other current assets, other than debtor and inventory. All these are other current liabilities, means other than creditor. Then they have given us the current ratio and asset test ratio. Basically, I will tell you what we have to do, chartered accountants. We have to use these ratios to find out the figure of opening debtor, opening creditor, closing creditor, opening stock, closing stock. And then we have to use those the figures in the debtor account and creditor account to find out the cash collected from debtors and payment to creditors. Instead of readily giving us the information of debtor and creditor, we will be first using the ratios to determine the missing information and then use those missing information in the ledger accounts of debtor creditor to find out the collections and payments and put it in CFS. It is also gathered that the debenture holders debenture holders owning 50% of the debentures outstanding as on 31st March 14 exercised the option for conversion into equity shares during the financial year, and the same was put through. On 31st March 2014, whatever amount of debentures are outstanding, in that 50% converted into equity shares during the year. On 31st March 2014, the total debentures outstanding is 40. They are saying 50% of the debentures outstanding on 31st March 2014, that is 20 lakhs, converted into equity shares during the year. So 20 lakhs loan, debenture loan was repaid by giving them equity shares. So it's a non-cash transaction. It will not be recorded in cash flow statement. So what you can see, from 40 it became 20. So during the year, debentures of 20 lakhs has been redeemed. And that entire repayment was done by giving them equity shares. So the journal entry is debenture account debit to equity share capital, which does not involve any inflow of cash nor any outflow of cash. We'll completely ignore it. And equity share capital has increased from 100 to 150. Entire 40 lakhs has not been received in cash. In this 40 lakhs, 20 lakhs has been issued to redeem debenture, which is a non-cash transaction. So only for the balance 20 lakhs, cash has been received, which will come under financing activity as a cash inflow. So 20 lakhs will come under financing activity as a cash inflow, and the balance 20 lakhs will be ignored because it's a non-cash transaction. We are basically not getting any cash. We are using that 20 lakh equity share capital to repay our debenture holders. So debentures will decrease, liability will decrease, capital will increase. No cash inflow, no cash outflow. Okay. Sorry. Then they are asking us, exercise option of conversion into equity shares. You are required to prepare direct method. They are asking us to use direct method of cash flow statement. In direct method, the cash flow from operating activity is determined by finding out the amount which the entity has received from the transactions falling under operating activity, and then we deduct all the payments made for the transaction which falls under the operating activity heading. We get cash flow from operating activity under direct method. Financing and investing activity are always done under direct method only. So this entire question has to be solved under direct method, not under indirect method. We don't have to do like this: net profit before tax and EOI, then non-cash items and other non-operating items, working capital changes. Those stuffs we don't have to do. Cash collected from debtors, cash paid to creditors, cash paid for expenses, taxes paid, extraordinary items received, will get cash flow from operating activity under direct method. To calculate cash collected from debtors, we need to prepare debtor account. To prepare debtor account, we need the opening balance of debtor, closing balance of debtor. That they have not given. They have given the information of all other current assets except debtor and stock. To find payment to creditors, we need to prepare creditor account. To prepare creditor account, we need the opening balance of creditor, closing balance of creditor. And we need purchases. They have not given opening creditor, closing creditor. We have to find out by using ratios. To find out purchases, we need to use the COGS equation. In the COGS equation, we need the opening stock and closing stock. So first, what we will do, we'll find out opening debtor, closing debtor, opening stock, closing stock, opening creditor, closing creditor. And then we will use it in the debtor and creditor account to find out the cash collected and cash paid, which we'll use it in the operating activity. All these information will be determined using the ratios, current ratio, asset test ratio, working capital, which they have given us in the question. Now, whenever this kind of question comes in exam, our solution technique will be same as what we have done in the prior questions. First, you set up the entire format. Leave some space for operating activity, leave some space for investing activity, leave some space for financing activity, then establish cash and cash equivalents. Then we'll get to know the closing cash and cash equivalents. So after setting up the format, then we'll do the working notes. First, working note number 1. But before we do working notes, chartered accountants, what is current ratio and what is asset test ratio? Let us quickly do a discussion. I know already you are aware of what is current assets, what is current ratio, and what is asset test ratio, but still we'll quickly do a discussion about it. Current ratio formula is current assets by current liability. Right, sir. Now, what are included in current assets? What are the examples of current assets? Cash in hand, cash at bank, cash equivalents, short-term investments, trade debtor, bills receivable, income receivable, prepaid expenses, closing stock, advance tax. These are the examples of current assets. What is current liabilities examples? Creditor, bills payable, outstanding taxes, outstanding expenses, income received in advance, provision for taxation, dividend payable, short-term bank loan like cash credit, OD, then current maturity of long-term debt. All these are examples of current liabilities. So current asset by current liability is current ratio. That information they have given to us in the question. They are telling in 2014, the second column represents 2014. In 2014, current ratio was 1.4. And in 2014, working capital was 100. Working capital means current assets, total current assets minus total current liability. So working note 1. The objective of these working notes is to determine debtors, creditors, and inventory balances. So calculation of debtors, creditors, inventory balances. inventories, balances. So these are the figures which we have to ascertain for both the years, 14 as well as 15. First, we are determining for 2014, and then we will determine for 2015. Current ratio for 2014 given in the question is 1.4. We all know the formula for current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities This is the formula. And current assets includes all those examples which I was talking about just some time back. And current liabilities also all those examples which I told you back sometime, which we discussed some time back. In this question, they have told that working capital is for 2014, 31st March 2014, the working capital is 100. So if working capital is 100, we all know working capital is the difference between current assets and current liability. So 100 is equal to current assets and current 100 is equal to current assets minus current liability. So therefore, current liability is equal to, if you want to find out current liability from this equation, it will be equal to 100 plus current assets. Or alternatively, you can write current assets plus 100. We will put this current liability in, we will put this reference of current liability in the above formula. So when we put this in the above formula, let's see what we are going to get. Current assets divided by, instead of writing current liability, we are writing the reference of current liability in terms of current assets, which is current assets plus 100. Put the value of current liability in the above formula. Then we can get current assets from this formula. So current assets will be equal to, when you solve this, 1.4 current assets plus 140 . One second, I made a slight mistake over here, guys. Actually, current assets is equal to 100 plus current liability. So we will put the value of current assets in this formula. 100 plus current liability divided by current liability is equal to 1.4. 100 is equal to 1.4 current liabilities. 100 is equal to 1.4 current liability minus current liability. So 100 is equal to 0.4 current liability. Therefore, current liability is equal to 100 divided by 0.4 is equal to 250 lakhs. So this is the balance of current liability, opening current liability, total opening current liability. Now, if total opening current liability is 250, how much will be current assets? Current assets will be 100 plus 250, which is equal to 350 lakhs. So we have got total opening current liability, total opening current assets. from the usage of the first equation, which is current ratio. Fine. The question has also given us one more ratio, acid test ratio. Now, what is this acid test ratio formula? Acid test ratio formula is total current assets minus stock. The numerator is popularly referred to as quick assets. From the current assets, if you minus stock, the answer which comes is called quick assets divided by current liability. This is the formula for acid test ratio, which you will learn more in details about it in financial management subject. Question is told, acid test ratio at the beginning of the year is 0.8. 0.8. We all know the total current asset is 350. We have already determined it in point number 1. Stock we don't know. Opening stock we don't know. Total current liability already we have determined above. It is 250 is equal to 0.8. Now, if you solve the equation, we will be able to get the value of stock. And this is opening stock. The left-hand side column is the balances as at 31st March 2014 at the beginning of the year. 0.8. So when you will solve this equation, you will get 150 lakhs. So this is our opening stock. Now we need opening debtor, opening creditor. Then we will also calculate closing stock, closing debtor, closing creditor. Then we will use it in the debtor and creditor account to find out the cash collected, cash paid, which will come in the operating activity. All right. Now third point. From the total current assets, if we minus stock from the total current assets amount, which is 350, if we minus the stock value in this, then if we minus other current assets other than debtors, then we will get to know debtors value. Total current assets is 350. In this current assets, we have debtor also, stock also, other current assets also, whose examples I gave you some time back. So if we minus stock, which is 150, and if we minus other current assets existing at the beginning of the year, other current assets is 18. The term current assets is a very wide term. It includes not only debtor and stock, it includes BR, dividend receivable, interest receivable, cash in hand, cash in bank, cash equivalent, short-term loans and advances. So the other current assets total is 18 at the beginning of the year. So if we minus that, we will get to know opening balance of debtor. 182. This is the debtor existing at the beginning of the year. Now we need to find out opening creditor. So opening stock determined, opening debtor determined. Now we will find opening creditor. So, but why we are finding? Because question has asked us to prepare the cash flow statement by direct method, and in direct method we need the cash collected from debtors, cash paid to creditors, which will come as a balance figure from debtor and creditor account. To prepare debtor and creditor account, we need the opening and closing balances. So we are doing all these stuffs. The last point, from the total current liability, if you minus all the other current liabilities except creditors, you will get the creditor's value. Now, current liability term current liability includes not only creditors, it includes a lot of other stuffs also, like outstanding expenses, interest payable, and etc. So the taxes payable. In this question, they have told at the beginning of the year, total current liability is 8. Interest payable and taxes payable. So if it is 8, if we minus that 8, we'll get to know creditors, opening creditors, 242 lakhs. Brothers and sisters, now we are going to find and do the same calculations at year end to find out the closing balances. So on the right hand side, I'm writing, we will write as at as at 31st March 2015. First, current ratio. At the end of the year, that is on 31st March 2015, current ratio given is 1.5 and working capital as at 31st March 2015 given is 80. We know that current ratio is 1.5 as at year end, and the formula for current ratio is current assets divided by current liability, which is equal to 1.5. We also know working capital is equal to current assets minus current liability. Working capital given at the year end is 80. So 80 is current assets minus current liability. So therefore, current assets will be equal to 80 plus current liability. We'll put this value of current assets in this formula and we will derive the value of current liability by solving it. So 80 plus current liability divided by CL is equal to 1.5. Now when we'll solve this equation, I'm directly writing the answer. Therefore, current liability is equal to 80 divided by 0.5, 160. This is our total closing current liability by after solving this equation. If closing current liability total is 160, then total closing current assets will be 160 plus 80, because we know current asset is 80 plus current liability. So current liability is 160. So current asset will be 160 plus 80, 240. This is the total current assets existing with the entity at year end. Now we will use the second ratio which they have given to us, asset test ratio. What is asset test ratio? Why do we minus stock? What is the logic? All those things you will study in financial management subject. The formula for asset test ratio, also known as quick ratio, is quick assets by current liability, which is current assets minus stock divided by current liability. And asset test ratio given to us in this question is, at the year end, the asset test ratio is 1.1. Current assets at the end of the year, we have already determined 240. Stock, we don't know. Current liability, already we have determined 160. So when you will solve this equation, we can get the stock figure, and that is the closing stock. So we need opening stock, closing stock, so that we can use it in the COGS equation to find out purchase, and that purchase will be put in creditor account to find out payment to creditors. Into 1.1 minus 240, 64. This is closing stock. All right, sir. Then we all know that total current assets at year end is 240. From this 240, if we minus stock 64, and if we minus the other current assets existing at year end, which is given in the question, other current assets at the year end is 2015 is 15. We'll get to know the value of debtors at the year end. So debtors will be 240 minus 64 minus 15, 161. This is closing debtors. All right. Number 4. Similarly, we can find out the closing creditor also. Total current liability at year end is 160. From total current liability, if we minus all the other current liability except creditors, we will get to know the figure of creditors at year end. Creditors outstanding at year end. And other current liability total is 10. So 150 will be closing creditor. So brothers and sisters, we have got the opening balances of all the three things, closing balances of all the three things, which was missing in the question. They told income tax authorities have taken the ledgers of debtors, creditors, inventory. They will not give for 2 months, but they gave this information. So we used these information to find out the missing figure. Now what we have to do? Now we have to just prepare the creditor, debtor, and find out the collection from debtor, payment to creditor. So working note number 2. Working note number 2. Debtor account, or you can also call it trade receivable account. In this first, of course, everything is rupees in lakhs. First, we'll write the opening balance, which we have determined in working note number 1. Opening balance of debtor, 182 lakhs. Closing balance of debtor, 161. Assuming the entire sales were made on credit, because whenever nothing is given, we should assume that the entire sales are on credit sales, 600. Credit sales, 600 lakhs. Balance figure of this account would give us cash collected from debtor, which is 621. This we got it in working note 1, these two things. So by bank account, balancing figure 621. Now this 621, we will put it in the cash flow statement because we are doing by direct method. So under direct method, we need cash collected from debtors. We don't write net profit and all. Cash collected from debtors. $621 lakhs. All right. Then now we will prepare creditors account. But guys, to prepare creditors account, we need purchases. Purchases they have not given. They have given cost of goods sold. So what we will do, first we will use the equation of cost of goods sold to find out the purchases, which will be put in the creditors account to find out payment to creditors as balancing figure. So calculation of purchases. The formula for COGS, guys, don't write short forms in exam. Cost of goods sold, opening stock plus net purchases minus closing stock. So COGS is 400. This is 400. Then if we put it over here, and opening stock, just now we have determined, we had determined sometime back in working note number 150, and closing stock 64. 150 purchases we don't know. That is what we are finding, 64. If we use this equation now, from this equation, we will derive the value of purchases, 314. And we will assume that this entire purchases is credit purchases. Assumed to be credit purchase. Because nowhere they have given us any data by which we can find out cash purchase. Working note 4, creditors account. The objective of this account is to find out the payment made to creditors. So buy balance brought down. We have already determined the opening balance of creditor in working note number 1. And opening balance of creditor is 242 and closing balance 150. The total purchases made during the credit purchases made during the current accounting period is 314. Just now we have determined it in working note number 3. Balancing figure of this account will give us the payment which we have made to suppliers for credit purchase of goods from them. Balancing. 242 plus 314 minus 150, 406. $556. This payment to creditors, we will put it in the cash flow from operating activity. Cash paid to creditors or suppliers or trade payables, by whatever name you want to write, you can write that. It's working note number 4. 406. Fine. So now let's come back to the question. We have done a lot of points. The basic information we have gathered. Now we'll start reading the question from the top to bottom. Share capital 110 to 150. The share capital from 110, it has become 150. This means the entity has issued during the year equity share capital of 40 lakhs. But as we discussed earlier, out of 40 lakhs, 20 lakh rupees of equity shares were issued to repay the debenture holders. In the starting part of the class we discussed, in the starting part of the question discussion we did. So 20 lakhs of the equity shares were issued to redeem the debentures. This means only the balance 20 lakhs debentures were, only the balance 20 lakhs of equity shares were issued for cash. So this 20 lakhs will come under financing activity, and this 20 lakh, that is that portion of the equity share capital which was issued to redeem the debentures, will not come up anywhere in the cash flow statement. So we'll write issue of equity share capital 40 minus 20, it comes to 20. Next, preference shares have been redeemed. The opening balance is 40 and closing balance is 10. So we have redeemed preference shares of 30. So redemption of preference shares will be recorded in financing activity as a cash outflow. Redemption of preference share capital. We all know that whenever we redeem preference shares, the total share capital of the company goes down. This reduction in share capital caused due to redemption of preference shares has to be restored as per the guidelines given in section 55 of Companies Act 2013. This section 55 says that the restoration can be done in any of the two ways. Number one, either by issuing new equity shares or by creation of CRR from free reserves. In this question, if you observe, up to 20 lakh rupees restoration has been done by issuing equity share capital. We have issued 40 lakh equity share capital, but in that 40, 20 lakh equity shares have been issued to redeem the debentures, and balance 20 has been issued for cash. So 20 lakh restoration has been done by issue of equity shares. This means the balance 10 lakh restoration will be done through creation of CRR. And capital redemption reserve balance given in the question is 10. So this 10 CRR has been created from free reserves to comply with provision of section 55. Under direct method, this information of CRR, general reserve, P&L account are of no use. But yes, under indirect method, this point becomes relevant, because under indirect method, when we compute the net profit before tax and EOI, when it is not given, we take the difference in P&L account, then we add with that difference in GR. Now, in this type of question, you have to be a little alert. You directly cannot just take the difference in GR and add it. You cannot say that from 20, the GR has become 30. No, you cannot directly just add the difference in GR while computing the net profit before tax and extraordinary item, because during the current accounting period, a part of the general reserve must have been transferred to CRR to comply with section 55. The entry for transferring it to CRR is general reserve account debit to CRR. So in such kind of questions, what we do, if we are solving under indirect method and we are not provided with the net profit before tax and extraordinary item, what we do, we prepare one general reserve account. We write the opening balance, we write the closing balance, then we write this entry also in general reserve. And then if this account doesn't tally, then that difference represent the amount taken out from current year profits and transferred to general reserve, and that amount will be added in the computation of net profit before tax and extraordinary item. If in this question they would have asked us to prepare the cash flow from operating activity under indirect method, then in this question also these information would have been ignored. The reason being, already they have given us the statement of profit and loss. So if they have already given us the statement of profit and loss, why we don't have to determine the net profit before tax from difference in PL transferred to reserve formula. We will see the statement of profit and loss. In statement of profit and loss, directly we can get the profit before tax, which is 70. And with this 70, if we add the extraordinary item 30, we'll get the profit before tax and extraordinary item. So in this question, even under indirect method, those information of CRR, general reserve, PL is irrelevant. But if P&L account would not have been given, then the net profit before tax and extraordinary item is determined by using the formula which we learned in the question number 29, Royal Limited, difference in PL, add transfer to reserves. But when you are taking add transfer to reserves, don't directly just take the difference of the what is given in the balance sheet. Prepare one GR account, because some amount in the current year from GR went to capital reserve. So to find out exactly how much amount we transferred from current year profits to general reserve, which will be added back, that will come as a balance figure from general reserve account. Okay, fine. Next, debenture. Guys, 40 say the debenture became 20. So we redeemed debenture. We have redeemed debenture by 20 lakhs, but the entire redemption was done by issue of equity shares. So it's a non-cash transaction. It will not affect cash flow statement. Next, other term loans. From 30, it became 15. From 30, if it became 15, there is a repayment of term loan. Repayment of term loan. Repayment of term loan. It was 30 minus 15. So 15 has been redeemed during the year. Then they have given us fixed assets. From 100, the fixed assets has become 130. So if you prepare one fixed asset account, opening balance is 100, closing balance is 130, and during the current year, depreciation is 50. During the current year, depreciation is 50. So balance figure will represent purchase of fixed asset, which is 80. So purchase of fixed asset would be 80, which will come under investing activity if we have done everything correct. No, there is some more transaction also. There is some loss on sale of equipment also. So we have to prepare one fixed asset account in the working note, because there are several adjustments affecting the fixed asset account. So let's do it. Working note number 5. Fixed asset account. to balance brought down, opening balance 100, closing balance by balance carried down 130. Then depreciation as given in the P&L account is 50. And then they are saying that in the current year, we have sold some fixed asset whose book value was 40. We sold it at a loss of 15. So those current assets whose book value was 40, book value of fixed assets sold 40, we sold it at a loss of 15. So the sale value of fixed asset will be 25. Whenever we sell a fixed asset on which accumulated depreciation account is not maintained, then two entries are required to record the sale. Number one is sale entry, bank account debit to fixed asset. This entry will be recorded with sale value. So bank account debit to fixed asset 25. And one more entry, loss entry. Loss entry will be loss on sale of fixed asset account debit to fixed asset account 15. Now let us do the posting of these two entries in the above ledger. By bank account, we have sold the fixed asset, one of the fixed assets for 25. And there is a loss by loss on sale of fixed asset account of 15. This sale of fixed asset will be reported in investing activity as a cash inflow. And the balancing figure of this account is coming on the debit side, which will represent purchase of fixed asset. And that balance figure would come to, I guess, 120. Yes, 120. This is a balancing figure and it will also come in investing activity, but as a cash outflow. All right, all of you, let's start the posting. Let us do the posting under investing activity. We will first write sale of fixed asset. How much we got? Sale of equipment 25. And purchase of fixed asset negative 120. Next, whatever point we have dealt with, we'll just put a tick mark. So we have dealt with depreciation, we have dealt with fixed asset. Now you may ask, sir, won't we add back depreciation? Won't we add back loss on sale of fixed asset in the operating activity? We do that under indirect method, not under direct method. Okay, long-term investment. From 50, it became 40. So we have sold investments. We have sold investments. Nothing mentioned. In the P&L account, they have not given any profit or loss on sale of investment. We will assume that the investments were sold at a book value. So sale of investment 10. In the P&L account, they didn't give us any profit or loss on sale of investment. This means it has been sold at book value. Working capital, current assets minus current liability. Already we have used it to find out debtors, creditors, opening stock, closing stock, payment to creditors, collection from debtors. Sales in debtors account we have already used. Cost of goods sold we used to find out purchases. Nothing mentioned. Assume expenses which are appearing in the P&L account. That is what we have paid during the year. The amount at which the expenses are appearing in the P&L account, that amount only the entity has paid if there is no outstanding and prepaid expenses given related to them in the question. So amount is establishment expenses paid. And selling and distribution expenses paid. The amount is 30 and 60. Then they have told us interest expense. But guys, with respect to interest expense, they have given us some outstanding, opening outstanding and closing outstanding. So we cannot take the figure appearing on the face of P&L account to be paid figure. So this which is appearing on the face of P&L account, interest expense, is the expense which we have incurred in the current year, not paid. If those opening outstanding, closing outstanding would not have been given, then we would have taken it to be paid. So we will write in financing activity. Interest expense paid. In the P&L account, 5 is appearing. In the P&L account, 5 is appearing. Opening outstanding must have been paid in the current year. So opening outstanding we will add, 5 we will add. And closing outstanding has not been paid. So we will minus. So always remember, whenever in the P&L account you see an expense, first check, is it a cash expense or is it a non-cash expense? If it is a cash expense, it's not necessary that whatever amount at which that expense is appearing in the P&L account, at that amount only we have paid. We have to adjust the outstandings, prepaids, then to find out the paid amount. If no outstanding prepaids given, then amount appearing in the P&L account is equal to amount paid. 6. After that, next information. Loss on sale of equipment we have already done. We have put it to fixed asset account. Interest income. 4. Same thing. It's not necessary that we have received also 4. There is some interest receivable given to us. Opening 2, closing 3. So if there would not have been any adjustment, then whatever amount of interest income is appearing in the P&L account, we would have taken it as received. But right now we can't take it as received. The reason being, there is some adjustments of accrued income. So interest income received during the year. How to calculate? The amount which is appearing in the P&L account. In the P&L account, it is appearing 4. With 4, we will add 2 opening outstanding because it must have been received in the current year, and will minus 3 because it is not yet received. So 4 add 2 minus 3, so it will come to 3. Next, dividend income. There is again adjustment in dividend income also. Some dividend is receivable. So again, the amount which is appearing in the P&L account, that amount cannot be taken as dividend received. 2 is the dividend which we have earned, but how much we have received will be found by using the opening outstanding and closing outstanding. Opening is 4, closing is 2. So this 4 is received in the current year and 2 is not yet received. So add 4 minus 2. So with 2 we'll add 4 and we'll minus 2, so it will come to 4. Next. After dividend received, the next point which they have given to us is foreign exchange gain. Guys, foreign exchange gain is a non-notional gain. It doesn't come in the cash flow statement. Under indirect method, we would have removed it from the P&L account because this gain is included in net profit gone up, so we would have minused it in indirect method. But under direct method, direct, we don't even take it. We don't even take it as an inflow. Damages received. Guys, damages received will be reported as an extraordinary item in operating activity. So in operating activity, we will write operating activity extraordinary item, damages received for loss of reputation. Since it's an inflow, so we will write it as a positive figure, 14. Then we have depreciation. Already we have put it in the fixed asset account. Taxes, 30. There is no, yes, there is taxes payable account given. So opening outstanding is 3, closing outstanding is 6. So we have to find out the tax paid by using the taxes payable information. In the P&L account, taxes is appearing at 30. It's not necessary that we have paid also 30. If they would not have given us opening and closing outstanding tax in the question, then we would have assumed that the amount which is appearing in the P&L account, that is the amount which we have paid. So 30 is the amount which is appearing in PL. It would have been taken as being equal to paid if the information of opening and closing outstanding tax would not have been given. But since it's given, so we have to find out the tax paid. Opening will be added because it is paid in the current year. Closing will be deducted because it's not paid in the current year. So whatever we haven't paid in the current year, minus it. Closing outstanding we haven't paid, minus it, then only you will get to know how much you have paid. Opening outstanding we have paid it, so add it. Dividends. Guys, if you observe, in liabilities, there is no dividend payable given to us. This means that this dividend is dividend paid only during the current year. So whatever amount is appearing in the PL, that amount only we have paid it. Otherwise, in the like they gave interest payable, taxes payable, like that, they would have given dividend payable also. Not given, entire dividend which we declared was paid also. All right. Net profit carry forward to balance sheet, no use in the direct method. Ignore it. Then dividend receivable we have done. These two are cash and cash equivalents. So this is opening cash and cash equivalents. This is closing cash and cash equivalents. So let us write it. First, opening cash and cash equivalents. 10 plus 2, 12. And we all know that investments maturing within 2 months, we are assuming that the original maturity period was also not exceeding 3 months. So it is taken to be a part of cash equivalent 12 and closing CCE. Now don't, as it is, we're not copying anything. Closing CCE is 10 as per balance sheet. But as per balance sheet, the closing CCE would have been increased due to forex gain. But we didn't consider that forex gain in cash flow statement because it was non-cash. Since we didn't consider, our closing CCE as per cash flow statement will come less. So to match it with balance sheet CCE, we have to additionally add unrealized gain at the end of CFS statement, or you can prepare a reconciliation table separately. I am adding within the cash flow statement only forex gain, which is given in the P&L account. I repeat, this CCE is the information of balance sheet CCE. Balance sheet CCE will be reported at the exchange rate existing on the balance sheet date, means after considering the exchange gain. But cash flow statement we didn't consider this gain. So since we didn't consider this gain, we didn't consider it as an inflow, our net cash flow will come less. With net cash flow, when you will add opening CCE, your closing CCE will come less and it will not match with the balance sheet CCE. So to match it with balance sheet CCE, this forex gain at the bottom is added. Or in a separate reconciliation table also we can add. Next. This also done, this also done. Debentures also done. Okay, everything done. Now time to pack up. Working notes already has been packed up. So we have to start the packing up with operating activity. Net cash flow from operating activity, already it is written. So it will come to just, we have to do the calculation. 621 plus 406. 621 minus 406 minus 30 minus 60. 112 positive. Cash flow from operations before tax is 125, and this is cash flow from operating activity before working capital changes, which is 98, and then we'll get the final answer 112. 112. Now, then we have cash flow from investing activity. So let us compute the cash flow from investing activity. 25 minus 120 plus 10 plus 3 plus 4. It's coming to negative 78. What is this negative 78? This is net cash flow from investing activity. And finally, we have financing activity. So financing activity 20, negative 30, negative 15, negative 6, negative 15, 46 negative. That is net cash flow from financing activity. So if we do plus minus and see the adjustments, we get 112 minus 78 minus 46, negative 12. So net cash flow is coming negative 12. See, this is what I was telling you. Negative 12, when you will add opening CC, your closing CC is coming 0. So as per cash flow statement, your CC is 0, but balance sheet mein CC is 10. So we have to add the foreign exchange gain to reach the balance sheet CC. This is called reconciliation, which AS3 asks us to give either within cash flow statement or as a part of separate reconciliation table. So this is actually reconciliation. Now it is reconciliation part it is. So 0 plus 10 will give you 10. This is our CC as per cash flow statement. And with 10 we add, then we'll get closing CC as per balance sheet. So this part becomes reconciliation. Okay, so now time to copy. On every page, I will wait for 5 seconds. You pause the screen and copy, and any doubt relating to this question, you can contact me, you can call me and ask. And finally, we have to write one note that conversion of debentures into equity shares is a non-cash transaction, so ignored. Conversion of debenture equity shares is a non-cash transaction. This note, kindly please write in exam also that it is a non-cash transaction, so it has been ignored. You can just write within bracket 20 lakhs. This completes our question number 34, Lambakadi.